Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Hi, I'm Mark Hoffman. I play Karl Marx in this segment of Conversations Across Time. Karl Marx stormed off the set, and as the character, I felt Marx had to make a very valid point about income inequality, and he loathed the other two characters on the show. Marie Antoinette, who had total disdain for the peasants and the people of France, and especially when she said, "Let them eat cake," and Ferdinand Marcos, a corrupt politician who exploited the Filipino people, stole their money, and the Philippines are still in debt because of him. Marx had to protest and walk off.
Good evening. You may recall that last week our guests were really very animated, and we really had a lively discussion. I will reintroduce our guests this week that were here last week, and that would be President Ferdinand Marcos. Welcome, President Marcos. Seated next to President Marcos, Mr. Karl Marx. Welcome, Mr. Marx. And seated next to Mr. Marx, Queen Marie Antoinette.
Bonjour.
Now, seated to my right is Jennifer Cardonic Walker. And Jennifer is an attorney here in Philadelphia who has so graciously agreed to sit in for my co-host Babette Josephs. Jennifer, I thank you so much for being here, and I thought you might be afraid to come back after last week.
We did have a lively discussion, Vivian, but I am happy to be back. I think that maybe we should start with picking up where we left off last week.
That's fine. I want to just put something out for the audience, because I did have an opportunity over this past week to think about some of the things that you were saying, Mr. Marx. And it is important for the audience to understand that today we're witnessing a great gulf in our society between the have and the have-nots. Now, we have with us as our guests, of course, President Marcos and Queen Marie Antoinette, and they represent the difference of the disparity between the have and the have-nots. That's why we're having this discussion. And so I'm afraid that we're headed towards I don't want to call it a revolt, but we're headed towards a terrible outcome if something is not done.
Let me just say this, Ms. Crawford. First of all, he's a scum capitalist who exploited his people. I don't even want to sit on the same panel with him of his ilk. She's a royalist that exploited her people. Whether she said it or not, she used the phrase, "Let them eat cake." Mr. Marcos, I don't even want to be under. You're a crony capitalist, and I refuse to sit on the same panel with you. No, I refuse to sit on the same panel with a man that exploited his people and a woman that could say, "Let them eat cake." Goodbye.
Well, Mr. Marx, I want you to know this is your first time as guest host. This is a first for Conversations Across Time.
Wow. The guests would just up and leave. Well, that kind of maybe shows you the type of thinking that he has. Can't handle.
No, I think more than anything else, I believe, as Mr. Marx was explaining to us last week, that there are, at this present time, there is a class of people who are running this country who seem to have no idea and no concern for the less fortunate.
Ms. Crawford, I disagree with you on two fronts.
Okay.
At the end of the last discussion, Karl Marx was talking about revolution in France. It wasn't a revolution, okay? It was revolution after revolution after revolution, which was a part of his philosophy of continuous revolution. Excuse me. Let me finish.
He might not be here, but I'm not going to let you mischaracterize.
Let me finish for a second,
okay.
Because in the beginning you talked about some of the great American presidents that understood about the American poor, and Lyndon Johnson was president when I came into the presidency.
I didn't say Lyndon Johnson. I said Franklin Roosevelt. I said Theodore Roosevelt. They understood.
No, you did not. You said Lyndon Johnson.
And Franklin Roosevelt and
Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson I happen to know personally, and he was president of the United States when I became president of the Philippines. One of the first things that he did was a war on poverty program. One of the next things that happened was a riot in Newark, a riot in Philadelphia. Yes, I did. A riot in Newark, a riot in Philadelphia, a riot in Watts.
No, wait, hold on. Are you saying that because of President Johnson's war on poverty, the result of the war on poverty was to have a riot in Philadelphia and a riot in Watts in Los Angeles and a riot in Detroit?
No, what I was saying is that along with butter for the people, which is important, which is part of what I ran on, along with that, you need to create security. Okay, and you need to make sure that the people are protected, because once you have revolution, that revolution just keeps going on. There's no leader. I'm a leader of a country. I run a country. Mr. Marx was never a leader of a country.
But it doesn't matter. You were a disastrous leader of a country. We are.
According to who?
We talked. Okay.
According to the roads that were built in my country.
No, what roads? You built very few roads. You keep talking about roads, hospitals.
More roads than all of my predecessors put together.
Yes,
more hospitals than all my predecessors.
If they built none and you built two, that would make it more. You are so deluded in your defense of a program, of a policy, of a way of running a country that it was disastrous for the people of that country. And let's talk about how wealthy your family is as a result of what you stole. Let's talk about that. Where is the money? Where is the money that was given to your country to build roads, to build hospitals, to build schools?
And we quadrupled the military.
And that
really
means
five times. First of all, the United States wanted protection in our country. Second of all, we needed protection in our country. The United States needed your country,
but they certainly did not. It was not clear to the United States just exactly what you were doing to your people.
It was not clear?
No, it was not. It was not.
What we were doing, the United States, okay, I'm in contact with the president. I had to talk to the president while I was on this show.
Yeah,
I'm in contact with the United States. The United States. I already told you in the last show. If you look at the tape from the last show, you're going to see exactly the person.
You talked to President George Herbert Walker Bush.
That's exactly what I told you.
Who was deluded and did not know what you were up to.
He was deluded and did not know what I was up to.
No, I don't think so.
He knew that I was building the military. He knew that I was building hospitals.
Building the military for what? For your protection, to enforce your
at his bequest.
Okay, I'm going to let. I'm going to let.
At that time,
please.
Well, let's. If President Marcos, we'll let you stew again for a moment, because I'd like to actually turn to Queen Marie here and ask you. It was brought up last time, and I want to ask you directly. Did you actually? The quote has been attributed to you, but did you actually say, "Let them eat cake"?
Marie Antoinette was the Queen of France during the French Revolution. She was married to Louis XVI. Actually, she was an Austrian who married him at a young age, and she presided over the French Revolution, and she was beheaded, and she had total disdain for the French people.
No, actually, I did not.
So what was then your attitude towards the lower class?
Well, as I mentioned in the previous show, I was not brought up in the education of politics, nor was I brought up in the education of understanding or the awareness of how poverty can strike in a country. I was, at a very young age, put into big shoes to fill, and to be quite frank, was it fair? Wasn't it fair? Think about that for just a moment. I'm a very, very young-aged queen. Very, very young. And to have the authority and power I'd had, nobody told me right from left, left from right. It was something that I had to figure out for myself. And after everything that's said and done, do I wish I would have done things differently? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you had no one that was on your
I didn't have anybody on my side. Nobody. My parents didn't send anybody with me to help me, to aid me, to tell me what was right, what was wrong, what was proper, what wasn't.
So this
I had to
all
figure it out for myself.
So let me understand. I know how young you were when you became queen, and that certainly gives us a different sight on you as opposed to President Marcos. I also know that you barely spoke French, that you were in a strange country, in a strange court, not very much aware of the ways of court. But one thing that I don't understand, with all of the excuses or the perspective, change of perspective that one can give to you, you have to know that when people are hungry, they become desperate. And that's the part of your history that's troubling to me. I don't put you in anywhere near the league of this criminal who's on this panel, President Marcos. And that's what I believe you are, a criminal. But I still don't get that you could not recognize that mothers in France were unable to feed their children. I believe the harsh winter of 1788 through 1789 is what led to a low production of foodstuffs for the country of France. And so you had people on the streets hungry. They had no way to feed themselves, feed their children. Do you now have any understanding of just how dire circumstances were?
I do now, but you have to understand being in the court, not having friends who you felt were very loyal, giving you information that may not be correct or maybe so correct. I really did not have an understanding. I mean, do I want anybody to die starving? Absolutely not. But did I think it was that big of a deal at the time? No, I didn't.
But wait a minute. All right, so are you saying that no one in the court told you that there was a problem in the country? That
they all wanted to overthrow me. It was like I step into this, beautiful royal castle, and I'm supposed to be queen, and, it's supposed to be all this extravagant lifestyle. But you know what? I had to find things that actually made me happy, because there were points in my life I was actually depressed. Whether it was with my children, having miscarriages, it's like,
wait a minute.
I feel like nobody understood.
But you were depressed, and the public of France was starving. I mean, you can understand how, from today's standards, we look at that, and while we may readily appreciate what depression means,
yes,
it's decidedly more pleasant than starvation. Would you agree? Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, I'm not sure that even if you didn't have anyone giving you good advice, there were certain instances that you exercised poor judgment. I see you sitting here in beautiful jewelry. I can't help but think about the diamond necklace episode when you were said to have appropriated funds from the French treasury to purchase an expensive necklace for yourself.
First of all, that was my husband. So for them to put the blame on me for that really, really hurt. I mean, does anybody really know, the full story that goes behind that? That necklace wasn't even entitled to be for me. And my husband wanted to give that to me as a gift. And I actually refused the gift.
Okay, but at any point did you suggest to, you were married to Louis XVI. We need to give some background on Louis XVI. Louis XVI was someone who was more interested in playing in his laboratory.
That's true.
Wasn't interested in running the country. May have been mentally challenged. But one thing is for certain that we know, and Mr. Marx talked about this last week, and that's the fact that your marriage wasn't consummated for 7 years. You were married to this man, but the marriage wasn't consummated. I mean, that in and of itself should have told you that something was wrong. Mr. Marcos talks about how exotic you were. So you were married to a man, this exotic woman married to a man who fails to consummate their marriage.
She grew into quite a woman, didn't she?
Thank you, President.
She grew into quite a woman, but it's questionable that
quite cultured, a very good mother, a friend to other women.
Oh yeah. Well, now wait a minute. You talked about being a friend to other women, and one of the things that was rumored around court, yes, that you had many lovers, both male and female.
Ferdinand Marcos was the corrupt dictator of the Philippines. He became dictator after World War II, and he exploited the Filipino people. He stole the money from the Filipino treasury, appointed his own relatives to important positions, and gave them lucrative contracts in the Philippines, and the Philippines have been bankrupt ever since.
Do you see what happens when you're in leadership? Do you see what happens when you're cultured? Okay, gossip, rumors, all of these things happen. What you have to do is you have to do the best that you can to create myth, to create structure for your people, to be coordinated with money to make sure that your people are protected. Those are the things that you have to do in history. I will never have the reputation in history or the longevity, not even close to what Karl Marx has. He's a thinker. He's an abstract thinker. He's a smart man. That does not run a country. A country is run by leaders.
But President Marcos,
and people look to leaders. And after a while, rumors start, different things happen.
President Marcos, though, can I ask you?
Yes.
How much of your leadership was you, and how much of it was actually either your wife or influenced by your wife, Imelda?
My wife is an exotic, intelligent,
stop. You know,
beautiful woman.
You said this last week.
Okay, and we had a good. Can I answer her question?
No, I want to ask you this one question. What do you mean when you keep throwing out she was exotic? You said that Queen Marie Antoinette was exotic. Your wife was exotic. Does that give them the right to take advantage of the people of their nation because they're beautiful? No question, she's beautiful. Your wife was beautiful.
What
I
I said,
how does that forgive them?
what I said was that I will go down in history as being known as someone that had an exotic wife. Okay, because that is the impression that is given. I cannot worry about that impression when I'm running a country.
But that's not what I asked you. She may have been beautiful and exotic, as you put it, but the question is what her influence was on you, whether your rule was all you or was the combination of you and her.
We had a marriage. My rule was me in coordination with the United States.
So you had a marriage with the United States, is what you're saying?
We certainly did.
That's interesting.
That's
So are you saying that the United States had more influence on your rule than your wife did?
Would you not think that if you're the president of the Philippines, that the United States would have tremendous influence on you? What do you want, Russia to be an influence?
But that wasn't my question. My question is what?
He wants to answer. You know, he's a lawyer also. He wants to answer
his own question.
Yes.
About what the question is what your influence your wife had over who you employed in your of your cabinet, if you want to say it that way.
The Rolex 12.
Thank you, the Rolex 12, and who ran things, and did you have any liaisons between your actual people who were under this martial law so you knew what they were going through? And I would actually put the same question to you, Queen Marie, of whether you had any clue what was going on with the people who were starving while you were refusing diamond necklaces from your husband.
That's exactly the point I was trying to make earlier. It didn't seem to me like it was that big of a deal at the time. I mean, yes, now I get ridiculed for it. You know, no matter what decision I would have made, I feel like no matter what, I would have failed, especially in the public's eye. Just didn't seem to matter.
Didn't seem to matter to you?
Well,
obviously, if somebody's starving, it matters to them.
Yes, but if I'm not told in a manner that makes me feel compassionate about what's actually going on, and it's kept from me in a certain manner, you know, I had people that really wanted to see me fall.
But what did people, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
But what did people have to tell you beyond that the people in your country are starving? And that's what I'm not clear about.
Maybe they didn't use that exact same vocabulary.
That is, okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted just because I wondered if you were going to be able to get any understanding of these two folk who are under their leadership. You were a leader in France because your husband was pretty much just, as I said, someone who wasn't interested in running the country, and you ran the Philippines.
You made the point that there were no hospitals. You made the point that there were no hospitals before I became president.
Let me finish.
Did you not make that point?
Hold on, let me finish.
Did you not make that point that there were no schools before I became president?
President Marcos, you may be president, but this happens
I
to
was
be
president.
this happens to be Conversations Across Time, and the host does get a chance to ask questions. Okay? So what I want to say is I want the audience to understand the notion of a kleptocracy. That is a small group of people who run a country and run the politics of a country in such a manner that it only benefits them. And that is exactly what Queen Marie Antoinette did and exactly what you did. You operated a kleptocracy. Now, given that, I'm trying to understand, as you sit here now, do either of you have any regrets? I think somehow Queen Antoinette indicates that had she really understood what was going on, perhaps she would have done something different. You, however, have not said that. In fact, as I understand it, I think that's why Mr. Marx got up and left. It is that you are bound and determined to paint and characterize your leadership of the Philippines as just leadership. I don't hear you having any regrets.
I do not have any regrets about showing leadership in my country, about building roads, about building hospitals, of which you said that there were none before that I was there, about building education. What I had was choices. And if I had to propose martial law again, I would have done it to make sure that there was no revolution in our country, to make sure that money continued to come in from the United States, who, as you say, I was married to.
Where is the money that came in from the United States? Because billions of dollars
went into the military.
Are missing.
Billions of dollars went into the military.
No, that can't be.
According to who?
To this day, there is no proof, there's no audit that has ever been conducted that comes back with any result other than that you, your wife, your friends, and your wife's family benefited from the preponderance of money that came from the Western powers. That history has been well settled. Billions of dollars. In fact, you went on trial and your wife was on trial for taking billions of dollars from Western powers. Now, again, just like the murder that you say you didn't commit, you remember that last week?
Yes,
the murder that he said he was acquitted of. Again, your wife was acquitted, but she was acquitted. That's a decidedly different understanding than to say that you didn't do it. So where are the billions of dollars? You're sitting here now, I'm asking you the question, where is the money that you took from the United States and from the World Bank?
If the money is missing, then where is it?
The money is missing.
If the money is missing, then where is it? I'm not president anymore. Where is it?
Wait, so you're asking me? I want to be clear.
I'm not president. You're talking about billions of dollars. Where is it? Supposedly there's people that were looking for that money. Supposedly we were accused of what we did with the money. Then where is it?
So your answer to me is to ask me what your answer to me is to ask me where the billions of dollars.
That we quadrupled, even more than quadrupled the military.
So you're saying you used the money on the military,
hospitals, that we built roads.
I will say one thing on the president's behalf, that I think it's very important when you're raising a country and supporting it, that there is funding that goes into education and schooling.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel very strongly about that, just because of my own particular situation. Even though I wasn't an upper higher class, I think it's very, very important.
And I don't think that there's any disagreement. I certainly know I don't have a disagreement, and I don't know if you do, Jennifer. I think where we are is we're asking the question of the money that he took from the United States and the World Bank to build infrastructure. And it's already been proven that of the money that he took, billions of dollars of that money is missing. It never got to the military. It never got to build roads. It never got to build schools. And it never got to build hospitals. So when I ask him about it, I think our audience will hear what his response is. He's asking me
If you travel to the Philippines today, you will find many hospitals that I built, many schools that I built, and many roads that I built.
But not
You
enough
will
to
also,
account for the money
there
you
was
stole.
tremendous money that went into the military. Now, if you're talking about the president being able to live in the way that a president should live, that, you know, we were afforded that. My wife was afforded the luxuries that she wanted. I afforded her that. That was fine
No,
with
you
me. I
didn't
was the
afford
president
her
of
a
the
damn
country.
thing. The United States and the World Bank afforded her that because you stole money. I think it's ridiculous.
We built a
for you to sit here
relationship
and
with the United
justify
States
this.
and the World Bank.
You did what?
We built a relationship with the World
You
Bank.
built
and
a
the United States.
relationship. You stole from them. Your country to this day is only paying back on the interest. You haven't even been able to touch the principal. And you're saying the lifestyle you afforded your wife, you and your exotic wife, took advantage of the people of the Philippines. Just like the exotic queen sitting next to you took advantage of the people of France. Unlike you, however, she didn't realize. But you knew. You knew what you were doing.
The situation with the World Bank in the United States and the Philippines is quite simple. Either you do what they want you to do, or you don't get the money.
So you're saying
Okay.
that what you did with the money was do what they told you to do?
Of course.
How many pairs of shoes did you? How many pairs of shoes did they tell you to buy for your wife?
My wife was afforded luxuries. There's
Did you
there's
have
no
any-
question about that. I will go down in history for that. But that's not all that I did as president.
You won't be the first man to go down in history as somebody that was whipped. And I think the audience will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I had
know
an
exactly
exotic
what I'm
wife.
talking about. You are nothing but an example of a man being whipped, having his wife run the country and have an extravagant lifestyle that is based upon the fact that the people of the country are deprived and living in horrendous conditions and poverty, extreme poverty, but your wife's running around with
My marriage to my wife was within the palace. My marriage to the United States was who allowed me to run the country.
So you're saying that the United States acted as husband to you, spoiled wife, like you acted as husband to your wife's spoiled wife. I'm just saying.
Did you have anybody who kept you in touch with what the people under your martial law were feeling, how they were living?
They knew that they were protected.
That's not what I asked you, though.
Protected from what? They needed protection from you.
From you, yes. But my question was, did you know how they were living?
I knew that they were living better under me than other
Well, I guess that's-
presidencies because they had more hospitals, they had more roads, and they had more schools.
And they
But
could
what
eat
about
those things,
their-
right?
Now,
They could eat those things.
once you become president, you begin to understand that there's other pressures, that there's other things that you do not have a magic wand to just make things happen.
What kind of pressures?
You're under pressures of people that are trying to undermine your government. Your people are under pressure. You're under pressures from the
Because they're under
powers
martial
that
law.
you're getting money from. What I had to do was to do the best that I could to sustain myself, to sustain my family, and to sustain my country.
And your friends. And your wife's family.
Well, my wife's family was, of course, very important to me.
Because a lot of the contracts, for instance, you gave the contracts for the the building of the roads, for the railroads, for the telephones, for all of the utilities. All of your friends owned those utilities. Now, that certainly is kleptocracy in its most severe form. I would just say to our audience, this has been Conversations Across Time, as we often end up asking a lot more questions than we get answers to, but at least what we try to do is have you consider history and the people who created history as exactly what they are. You see what President Marcos is. So I thank you for condescending to join us, President Marcos. I thank you so much, Queen and Marie Antoinette. I mean, it's been a pleasure having you here. At least I have a little more understanding of you.
Thank
and
you.
I thank you so much for being my co-host for these past 2 weeks. As you can see, we didn't get to conclude anything. We just got to ask a lot of questions and make our audience think. This has been Conversations Across Time. Thank you. Good night.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations